up, give it up. You may be seated. Well, good morning, Eastside. My name is Micah, and I have the honor and privilege to serve as one of the life group pastors here at Eastside. And I get to continue the sermon series we've been in called The Men We Need. Now, if you've been with us the last few weeks, you know that we've been looking at what a godly man is and what he isn't. And don't worry, we're all on the journey of this. I am not perfect at being a godly man, but we're all on the journey of looking at what it is and what it isn't. You see, a godly man is not based on looks, achievements, accolades, bank account, your body count, but it's about character. And so that's why the last few weeks we've been looking at biblical traits of a godly man. I highly encourage you, if you've missed one of those, to go back and to look at them. It would be great for your soul to go and watch those. But let me give you a recap of where we have been. Number one, biblical traits of a godly man. First one is courageous. He stands on God's word. Number two, he's responsible. He rejects apathy and excuses. Number three, he's humble. He knows that pride will lead to downfall. And number four, today we're going to be talking about a godly man is sacrificial. He denies oneself to honor God and to others. You know, when I think about these traits, there's usually a person that comes to mind for each trait. And I think that person shines in that characteristic. And if you think of men in your life, you could probably think of a guy that's courageous, that stands on God's word, that's responsible, that's a humble, and maybe sacrificial. For me, when I think of a man that's sacrificial in my own life, I instantly think of my dad. He shines at being sacrificial. Me, however, I struggle badly with this, to be sacrificial. And to be honest, creating and crafting this message has been super difficult for me. I've lost sleep. I've become more anxious and worry because as I looked into the mirror, I started to see that Micah really doesn't sacrifice, but he lives for himself. And he does that often. But this struggle of living for yourself is not new. It dates back way before us and actually goes back to the time of King Solomon in the Bible. You see, King Solomon was a guy who was the wisest man to ever live, and he was also debated to be one of the wealthiest people to ever live as well. How wealthy, you might ask? How rich? Well, in today's money, a quick Google search will tell you that today's his net worth would be $2 to $3 trillion. And he used all of his power and his money and his influence to do an experiment. And this experiment was to live for himself, to deny himself nothing, but indulge in everything. And he wanted to know, would living this out, living for myself, be worth anything? And so this is how he did it. In Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 4, it says this: I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired men and women singers and a harem, which a harem is a living quarter for his 700 wives and 300 concubines. It says, then, as well as the delights of the hearts of man, I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. He used all of his power, money, wealth, and influence to go on this journey to live for himself. And the big question is, first, we will never be able to do this. We don't have the time, energy, and money to do the experiment that he did. But he did. And the question is, at the end of living for himself, and he did all these great things, was it worth anything? Well, just a few verses later, he tells us in verse 11, "Yet, when I surveyed all that my hands had done, what I had toiled to achieve, everything was" what? Read it with me. "Meaningless. A chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun." And so we see here that living for yourself is a complete lie. But to grow in sacrifice takes time and intentionality, and it's completely countercultural. You see, I've been told as a man, and many of the men in here have been told this, that the world has told us just to live for ourselves. And when we do that, we start to build our own kingdom. I like to call it the me kingdom, where it's all about us. It's about our comfort, our indulgence, and self-centeredness. But sacrifice says, no, it's not about you, but it's about God and it's about others. Romans 12:1 puts it this way. "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Don't be conformed by the patterns of this world." In other words, don't be caught up in the lie that living for yourself is the best thing. You see, as a godly man, as we strive to be sacrificial, we have to stop living for ourselves and start living for the kingdom. You see, when you live for the kingdom, you actually deny yourself and desires to honor God and others. He continues to say, "Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will." Again, there's a shift that we must make. But to deny myself, for you to deny yourself and your desires and to honor God is no easy task. And here's 2 reasons why. You've spent a lot of time doing it. I've spent a lot of time living for myself. It's a habit, it's a stronghold, it's like second nature. And the second thing is this: the world constantly tells us that satisfaction is waiting for us in the next achievement and the next relationship and the next pleasure or the next experience. And we see this all the time in our culture today. That athlete, that actor, that artist, they become famous, and then what? They use all their time and energy, their money, their influence to go chase after whatever their heart desires. And then all of a sudden we don't hear anything from them, and it's 2-3 years later, we see them on a podcast, and they start telling us, "Yeah, I had everything. Everything I dreamed about, I had. I had accomplished all these things, yet I felt so empty and unsatisfied." Again, this is living for yourself. It's a complete lie. But I wish just knowing the truth and knowing the example that Solomon said for us, that living for yourself is a lie, would just be enough for us to quit doing that. But it's not. It only gets the journey started, and we need something to sustain us. And so before I go in and talking about my points, there's 2 things I want to encourage you to do. First, men, I'm going to talk a lot. I'm going to give you a lot of extra points that are not going to be on the screen. So men especially, I want you to take notes, grab a pen, or get your phone out and write notes down. And number 2, I need everybody to go to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22. We'll be there here shortly. So what do we need to do? What are the things that are going to help sustain us? Well, before I give that to you, I got to ask you this question. Who here has been to the beach? Raise your hand. It's a great time, right? This is the perfect time to go. And when you get to the beach, what do you often do? You sit down in your chair, you stake out your umbrella, you get your beach towel, you have your cooler, your snacks, everything, and then you go darting straight into the ocean. And have you ever just started swimming, not looking back, not caring, but then when you do look back, only just a few minutes later, you have slowly drifted 50 yards down the shoreline. Anybody else done that? Happens to me all the time. And so what you need to do is often find a landmark, right? Something for you to keep checking to make sure that you aren't drifting. And this thing with drifting, it's not like we plan to drift or we try to drift down the shore. It just happens. You see, no man wakes up and says, I don't want to be sacrificial anymore. I want to be selfish today. We just drift there. And so when you're at the beach, you choose a landmark. Usually it's a lifeguard stand, it's a pier, it's a building. Maybe it's your stuff that you put down. And you use that to keep looking back and to check on to see if you've actually drifted. And the same way, we need landmarks in our lives to help us stay focused on becoming sacrificial men that God has called us to be. That way, we can make sure to see if we're drifting. And so this morning, that's why I want to give you. I want to give you 4 landmarks of sacrificial manhood. That way, that it will keep us from drifting and keep us on course of cultivating this trait of being sacrificial. And so if you're taking notes, number 1 is this: honor others. Romans 12:10 says it this way: be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourself. And there's 3 practical ways you can do that. Number 1 is don't gossip or slander. Number 2, you put others first. And number 3, you serve others. Now, let me go back and talk about gossip and slander. Everybody has that person that when they say something to you, it gets under your skin. It frustrates you. They're mean to you, whatever it is. And you have 2 responses usually. The first response is to give in to the temptation to go talk to your other friends and to gossip, to talk about how bad they are. I can't believe they did this or do that. The second one is to give it right back to them. But as godly men and as Christians, we know that in the book of James, it says this, that you curse your neighbor and you worship God with the same mouth, and that should not be. It goes on to say that you know that your words can carry life and death. And so we shouldn't use our words for gossip and slander, but we should use our words to encourage and to build people up. Number 2 was to put others first. That means considering the needs of others before your own. And this can be found in your daily lives. This is as easy as opening the door for a family. It's as easy as when someone drops something at your workplace and you help them pick it up, or you take time to make sure that you're not the first one in the food line, you're in the back. It's just putting people's desires and their needs before your own. And number 3 is to serve others. It's meeting the needs physically and emotionally for somebody else when the opportunity arises. And so for me, this happened for me, in which somebody in my life group honored me, and they served me and my wife. You see, 2 weeks ago, me and my wife were actually heading down to the beach. We're going to Hilton Head on our baby moon. This is our time to get away before we have our second child. And so we wake up early Saturday morning and we start to drive. We get to Mount Vernon exit and it starts downpouring. And sure enough, we hydroplane and go straight off the highway into a ditch. Immediately when a crisis happens, there's usually people that you reach out to. And for me, it's always my men's group. And so I texted my men's group and said, hey, this is what's going on. Please pray for me. We're okay, but just pray for the process. Immediately, the guys just started saying, hey, praying for you. Let me know if you need me. Some people texted me on the side and said, hey, you let me know what you need and I'll be there. But then there was one guy that said, hey, I'm on my way. And this guy decided on his day off, 6 o'clock in the morning, to drive down to Mount Vernon and to pick up me and my wife to take us back home. So he met our physical needs, but he also met our emotional needs. As we were driving back, he made us laugh and chuckle about the whole experience. You see, God will provide opportunities for us to honor others by sacrificing our time and our energy for the benefit of others. We just need to be humble enough to say yes. And so men, if you look back as you're in the ocean of life and you look back to the shoreline of being a sacrificial man, I got to ask, have you drifted when it comes to honoring others? It's completely okay just to say yes. There's no shame. That's the first landmark of being a sacrificial manhood. The second is this: love your wife. Now, before I get into this, ladies, I know this is usually the time where you get to elbow your husband and to nudge him to pay attention. But let me encourage you to do this instead. Sometimes men carry a lot of shame and guilt and burdens of providing and being a father, being a husband, and everything. And so the smallest thing of shame will grow in his heart. However, if you just encourage him, watch what God will do. And so, when we talk about loving your wife, first of all, I got to say that there's men in here that are single, that are dating, maybe engaged, and you don't have the husband title yet. But let me encourage you that what I'm about to share and say, you can take note of, and you can keep it for when you do receive that title. And so when we talk about marriage, we think of Ephesians chapter 5. This is where it gets into the roles of a husband and a wife. And so we're going to start in verse 22. And it says this: "Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior." And so what we see here is that the man is first, and then it goes on to say, "Now, as the church submits to Christ, so wives should submit to their husbands in everything." Men, how many of you have heard this? Raise your hand. Yeah, it goes up quickly. Right? We've all heard this. But this is just the beginning of what Paul is about to discuss and what he's about to encourage. And the cool thing is that he gives wives these 2 or 3 scriptures, but then the next 6 verses, he really gets after us husbands to encourage us and to challenge us. And so let's finish it out. Verse 25 says this: "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with the water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated his own body, but he feeds and cares for it, just as Christ does the church." And so what do we see? If I could sum this up in my own words, this is how I would encourage and challenge men. This is what I would say. Husbands, you only get to love your wife one day at a time. Be responsible and take ownership of your role as a husband. Give her the time and energy you promised her before witnesses and before God on your wedding day. Her well-being is of primary importance. That means before yourself, before your desires, before your hobbies, before the kids, and especially before your work, your wife comes first. And I have some things that I want to give you, husbands, to encourage you to help get rid of this mindset of you first and putting your wife first and her well-being first. But I got to admit, I am not good at doing this. I haven't even been married a decade. It's only going to be 7 years in October. But there are things that I have learned and God has shown me that has helped me put my wife's well-being above my own. And so the number one thing is this: know what brings her joy. For my wife, it's pretty simple. It's plants, coffee, and getting her nails done. You see, loving your wife means paying attention to the things that matter to her. Listen, men, I don't really understand what's the point of going to Lowe's and buying a plant that will eventually die. It doesn't make sense to me. However, it brings my wife great joy. And so whatever matters to her matters to me. The second is this: know what she needs. One simple question that I try to ask is this: what do you need from me today? Sometimes it's just helping out with the kids. Sometimes it's doing laundry. Sometimes it's doing dishes. It's cooking. Sometimes it's taking the kids for the day so she can have a day for herself. Sometimes it's just me being present and available. Know what she needs. Third, take an interest in her life. Maybe you've heard the saying, never stop dating your wife. But ask about her day. Ask what went well, what was difficult. Listen to her stories, her victories, and her frustrations. Man, I know that at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is talk. You get home and your words are spent, and scientifically, men have no more words at the end of their workday. But the ladies have plenty to spare. And so the temptation is, as a husband, is to go in and just give the simple answers, yeah, huh, I don't know, maybe. But let me encourage you and challenge you, men, to put away that laziness and that effort and to ask your wife about her day. You see, a sacrificial husband is more than just a roommate. He is a faithful partner in every season of life. And so, men, if you're in the ocean of life and you look back at the shoreline of being a sacrificial man, have you drifted from loving your wife? Again, there's no shame in saying yes. Honor others. Love your wife. And the third landmark is this: choose brotherhood over isolation. Now, I don't know about you, but there just seems to be this generational lie that gets passed down from generation to generation to generation. And it sounds like this: man up, handle your own problems, and it's me against the world. Which only teaches me and you that real strength is self-sufficiency, and asking for help is a sign of weakness. And the result, well, we live in isolation, we have hidden struggles, and we have shallow relationships. But men, you were created to be supported, to be held accountable, and for deep connection with other men, not to be a lone wolf. And if you're a man that stands on God's word, that is courageous, you should know that Scripture says that strength is found in faithful dependence on God and on His people. You should have these Scriptures to help push back this lone wolf mentality. It's in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, where God says it's not good for man to be alone. It's in Ecclesiastes 4:9, where it says two are better than one. Galatians 6:2, it says, carry each other's burdens. James 5:16, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other. Even Jesus chose to come here on earth and to choose friends and disciples to do life with when he could have been a solitary hero. And I know the pushback usually is, hold up, Micah, I have friends, they're just don't go to church with me. They're outside of church. And I got to be honest with you, those type of friendships usually are built off three things: convenience, entertainment, or shared interest, rather than a commitment to Christ. And the problem isn't that you just have friends outside of church, but it's believing that they can replace real relationships. I have friends, but then I have a godly brotherhood, and it's completely different. You see, when my marriage is struggling, or when or if my kids go adrifting, or if I'm just spiritually exhausted, I don't need a friend to come pat me on the back and be sympathetic and just move on. To say, hey, buddy, it's okay, it's just a season. Hey, buddy, it's okay, here, have another drink. Hey, buddy, it's okay. You know what? Maybe you are in the right and your wife is completely wrong. I don't need that. No. I need men who will challenge me, pray with me, point me back to Jesus, and help me wake up to fight for what matters most. These are the brothers who lovingly correct me, help me overcome strongholds, and encourage me to pursue Christ in every area of my life. You see, men, there is a choice to be made. Don't live in isolation. Don't fall into shallow relationships that only lead to being apathetic, irresponsible, and living for yourself. Choose godly brotherhood, which I say is found in life groups. And if you're not in a life group, men, here's my open invitation. Come join me in the life group that I'm a part of on Tuesday nights. We meet every Tuesday night. And maybe Tuesday doesn't work for you, and that's fine. But come find me, a staff member, a volunteer, and we'll help you get out of living in isolation and into godly brotherhood. And for the men that are in a life group right now, can I ask you this? Have you drifted? Have you stopped showing up to attend regularly? Have you stopped seeking out opportunities to invest in the other relationships that you have inside that men's group? Have you drifted? So we have honor others, love your wife, choose brotherhood over isolation, and number 4, live for eternity, not urgency. And what do I mean by that? You see, a sacrificial man isn't controlled by temporary pleasures or distractions or success. He lives with eternity in view. And today, I get the privilege and honor to invite my friend Christian Kerr. He's going to share his story and his journey on doing exactly this. Will you help me welcome Christian Kerr? Get ready to take notes, all right?
Man, it's a long walk up here. No, it's an honor to be a part of this series. We're talking about men and men of faith. Are there any men of faith in the house? There's 4. Okay. Okay, we're good. That's more than the 9. That's okay. See, we're talking about being sacrificial, and this is something that has meant a lot to me, especially over the past, year and a half, because it's something that God has been continuously working on me about. So I don't have time to go in my whole life story. That would take a whole sermon, and I'm not doing that. But just know that it's full of a lot of depression and suffering and loss and anger and all this garbage. But the part that I want to talk about is the little cherry that sits on top, is that I was too prideful and too arrogant to admit that any of it had bothered me. And God was working on me, and He put me in situations where I had nothing to do except for rediscover the very faith that I had lost. See, I spent majority of my year last year in a hotel room in Tennessee for work. It was there that His presence had followed me down there and kept working on me. I guess at the end of the year, I actually wasn't moving fast enough. I actually ended up losing my job, and I was stuck at home, and yet He kept working. See, the only reason I ever actually agreed to go to in the first place was I was trying to be a good husband, and I was going down to Tennessee to get extra money so I could send Hallie to Guatemala. I was like, whoa, she's not the only one that's going to go. It was down there that the pieces finally clicked in my brain, and my heart had been softened enough where I was finally able to admit that I was wrong. I was finally able to grab my pride and my arrogance and lay it at His altar where it belonged. And down there, I was finally able to ask, God, what do you want from me? Why are you doing all this? Why are you chasing me? Why are you pursuing me? You want to know what He said? You. That's all He asked for. He didn't ask what I was bringing with me. See, we get in this headspace that we have nothing of value to give, or we can't be used, or we have no talents, when He didn't ask for any of that. He didn't ask what you were bringing with you. He didn't ask who you hurt. He didn't ask you how long it had been. All He asked for was you to bring yourself, your pride, your arrogance, your unforgiveness. It didn't matter. He just asked you to bring it. I'm a living example of this because I was able to bring those very things here. That's why I have a marriage that flourishes. That's why I have a miracle son that's going to be here in about 6 weeks. It's nothing that I did, except for live sacrificially. I don't come up here to brag. I just come up here to be an example. Now, I'm not a pastor, but I'm going to preach to you again. The same thing I said earlier. You listen to that little voice. You listen to that lie in the back of your head that says, you can't be used. He don't want you. You can't tell your life group about that. what will they think of you? So I'm gonna say to you the same thing he said to me. Just give him you. And watch what he does, not only for you, but to you. It's amazing to see the work that can be done. I'm a living example, as I've said 5 times, and I'm not gonna stop saying it. My name is Christian. This is where I belong. So think about that. Think about what he's asking you. Think about what he's laying on your heart. Whether you have to do it physically here, whether you have to do it in your car because he won't let you leave, whether you have to do it in your bed because he won't let you sleep. Whatever it is, he's going to keep asking and asking. So why are you holding on to it? I love y'all. I'm done.
Early this morning, I was joking with Christian when Hallie and him started coming back to Eastside. I had the privilege to meet with Christian, and I take him out to one of the places I'm known for, which is B-Dubs, and to see him now is completely different. And if I could sum up the last year and what God's been doing, it'd be found in Matthew 6:33. But seek first his kingdom and righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Christian put off temporary pleasures, distractions, and success to make an eternal impact, not just in his life, but in the life of people around him. And the coolest thing is that, sure, I've been able to see a difference in him, but the people that are really going to benefit from his sacrifice and him living for eternity and not urgency is going to be his wife, and it's going to be his soon-to-be son. But why does Jesus really tell us to seek his kingdom first? It's because he knows that this is not our home. He knows that there will be a day that we can no longer love our children and build them up to be to build them up to have godly character traits. He knows that there will be a day where we can no longer love our wives, our husbands, the people around us. And with that, he says, make an effort and to make an internal impact in God's kingdom and in the life of others. I said in the beginning that my dad was a guy that shined in being sacrificial. And I just want to end with this story. A fall or two ago, my dad, we were doing a coat drive here, and my dad decided he was going to bring in all of his coats that he didn't need, and he texted me and said, Micah, hey, they're in the atrium. You go look through any of the coats that you want, and then you give the rest away. And so I'm sifting through this, all the jackets, and then I look at this, and I remember this orange. And I quickly grabbed this and said, this is the one I want. It's not the warmest. It's honestly not that good looking. But to me, this was a landmark of the trait that my dad had of being sacrificial. You see, every night, sometimes it was before dinner and sometimes it was well after dinner, my dad would walk into the door and he would have this coat on and he would do two things. One, he would hang it up on the hook. Other nights, he would be so tired, he would take it off and drop it on his work bag. And instead of going into his office and playing video games, being on his phone, or going to bed early, which seems to be right? There seems to be an urgency that I must do these things to take care of myself. No, he decided to put it down, and he walked into the living room, and he said, Micah, Rome, Chaim, how was your day? He invested in us when he was tired and he was weary and he had no more words to give. And it made a lasting impact on my life, where now I get the opportunity to do the same for my little girl, my soon-to-be boy. And so men, the people around us need to see that we'll be sacrificial, not for the things that we want or desire or that seem urgent to us, but for the things that matter. And that's God's kingdom. That's for the people around you. And so as we pull up these landmarks of honoring others, loving your wife, choosing brotherhood over isolation, and live for eternity, not urgency, the question I ask again is, have you drifted? And let me just say, I'll be the first one to say I've drifted. Would there be any men so humble and courageous to raise their hand and just say, you know what, Micah, I too admit that I've drifted? Would you do that? Any men in the room? Look around. We're not by ourselves, right? We're all in this journey of learning what it means to be a godly man. And so there's no shame in saying, yeah, I've drifted. But if you're like me, we want to improve. We want to get better. We want to change. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, in this next song, as the band comes back out, in this next song, I need you to look at these four and to ask God, which one is it that you want me to focus on and commit to this week? Can I be honest, transparent, and vulnerable? Mine's number 2. It's to love my wife and to love her well. And so will you guys stand right now? As we go into this moment of reflection, I ask you to do this. Pray, ask the Lord, which one is it that you want me to work on, Lord? And then commit to it this week.